This is the pChal Redemption Tournament, a $2,000 VGC tournament I hosted on my channel that invited everyone who got disqualified from Pokemon Worlds or who were forced to play an unfair sudden death during their elimination matches. Why did I run this tournament? Well, I made a whole separate video on that, but the short version is, I think the Pokemon Company sucks at running competitive tournaments, and I want them to change. I felt bad for players flying out for this event only to get disqualified and not win any money, and make some people who are very fun to watch when they're angry, very angry. Hi, Verlis. Anyway, we ran the tournament on Pokemon Showdown. We were able to run 14 sets in less than 4 hours. Nobody had to waste their time team building. Nobody had to worry about disconnections ruining everything like they did at Worlds. We even had a disconnect during one of our games, and were able to simply recreate the exact game state using Pokemon Showdown. Crazy how a group of unpaid devs can make that happen, but the highest grossing media franchise in the world can't. For some, this was a chance to prove the teams they brought to Worlds were the right call. Brady, for example, had been able to show off exactly why he believed so hard in Screen's Grimmsnarl, taking out a Worlds finalist with it in his first match. Do you see what these cheaters are capable of if you just let them play? Others took a shot at it with new teams. Emilio Forbes was one of a few at Worlds to make a meta call that would have sounded absurd prior to the introduction of Water Urshifu and Tornadus in Regulation D, Bramblegast. But this format was practically built for Bramblegast. The introduction of Tornadus as a competent Tailwind user finally allowed Bramblegast to take true advantage of its Wind Rider ability, which grants its attack boosts whenever it's on the field in Tailwind. It also grants immunity to wind moves, which includes some of the most used moves in the format like Icy Wind and Heat Wave that would be super effective into Bramblegast. The team had Emilio on the doorstep of top 8 at Worlds, so naturally, he completely ditched it for my tournament. Instead, he brought one of the Pokemon that defined Michael de Besta's run to second place, Farigiraf. Michael used Farigiraf primarily to support his team, with the Armor Tail ability blocking priority attacks and Imprison and Trick Room to disrupt opposing attempts at speed control. Oh yeah, that's Michael de Besta, the second place competitor at Worlds. He was also forced to play a sudden death, and even though he was lucky enough to win it, being in a sudden death was enough of a humiliation to be invited to this tournament. This is the point of Emilio's Farigiraf. Emilio was able to put a ridiculous amount of pressure on Gavin, even though Gavin was able to set up the Trick Room his team relied on to thrive. By the time Gavin was able to get his Ursaluna in position to swing with Guts boosted facades, Emilio had already intimidated it twice, and Landorus was able to shrug off its attacks. Emilio had all the momentum, and the threat of Amoonguss' Spore prevented a second Trick Room from going up. Emilio's Heatran was unstoppable from here, and he took Game 1. Game 2 was more of the same, just quicker. Farigiraf set up a nasty plot on turn 2, completely walled Gavin's Dragapult, and went to work. 3 of Gavin's 4 Pokemon were gone by turn 4, and the forfeit came in immediately. Emilio advanced 2-0. Luca was the other player relying on a squad headed by Pelipper and Goldengo in this bracket, believing in the same 6 he piloted on a 9th place Worlds run that was only stopped by sudden death. He said he wanted a chance to prove himself, and he played like it. He won his first match off stream, setting up a second round matchup against Brady and his Screens team. One of the reasons Urshifu Water was everywhere at Worlds, though, was its ability to beat damage mitigation effects like Screens with its signature move Surging Strikes, which can ignore Screens or stat drops from Intimidates or Parting Shots thanks to its guaranteed critical hits. The key for Luca was positioning his Urshifu correctly and navigating around Brady's water resists like Terra Water Iron Hands, Amoonguss, and his own Urshifu, which he was able to do to take the 1-0 lead. Game 2 saw both Goldengos on the field, Nasty Plot boosted and staring each other down, but because Luca saw his Goldengo go first on turn 1, he knew he had the advantage, even with his Iron Hands asleep on the field. With its good as gold ability, Goldengo can't be spored, so Luca knew he could Terra Steel and deal insane damage to both of Brady's Pokemon on turn 2. The Terra also allowed his Goldengo to survive the Shadow Ball from Brady's. With the speed advantage, Luca had Brady on the back foot. On turn 5, he made the game-winning call. Brady's Iron Hands was threatening a Fake Out, which would allow Brady's Goldengo to take out Luca's with either a Shadow Ball or a Make It Rain. Brady assumed Luca would protect his Goldengo and instead sent the Fake Out into Iron Hands. Luca made the level 2 read, assuming Brady would read his Protect, and instead letting his Goldengo swing with Shadow Ball, taking out its counterpart and giving Luca an insurmountable lead. Luca was able to seal the 2-0 victory and clinch a spot in the top 3. Today's video is sponsored by Manscaped, and I get to finally talk about my actual literal favorite product from this brand. I've been with Manscaped for a long time, and this is the product of theirs that I use by far the most. This is the Handyman. I travel a lot, and I've traveled a lot this year. If I'm traveling out to events like Worlds in Japan, for example, I want to stay nice and well groomed. And this is just such a beautifully efficient little shaver to keep yourself well groomed and keep your keep that stubble away from your face and just keep it all nice when you're out, or you're just traveling with friends and you want to look nice. And the best thing about it is it's got a USB port for charging, so you don't actually need to pack like a separate charger. Like I have this electric toothbrush, but if I want to bring it, I have to bring the charger for it and blah blah blah. This, you just throw it in your bag and you forget about it. You charge it with the same charger that charges your phone, your Switch, or whatever, or your headphones. You have a USB-C on you at all times, right? I just really like the Handyman. It's just a really nice and convenient product. If you feel like it, link in the description of the pinned comment, 20% off all Manscaped products with my code PokemonChallenges. Thank you so much for Manscaped for sponsoring this video. Let's get back into the tournament. Down in loser's bracket was a matchup of two titans, Emilio Forbes against Michael de Beste, both of whom had been subjected to sudden death at Yokohama. The key moment of game 1 came on turn 2. U-turns Chien-Pao, or Shifu comes in now. What do we think this Dragapult is targeting? Probably the... Do we think it's the Lando slot? Do we think it's the Amoonguss slot?
This is going to be really tough because it could have been either slot realistically, and this is the curious part. Is the Amoonguss trained to live a Phantom Force with Terra Ghost with the Sword of Ruin up? Because if it can, you could Rage Powder and just Surging Strikes, and it would be pretty safe. Even then, you could probably go for it. You could probably knock out the Dragapult here, and that would be fantastic for Emilio because the Chien-Pao's in range of Aqua Jet. Chien-Pao can't do much to Urshifu, so this might be actually a pretty good spot for Emilio.
Yep.
Actually, just go straight for Rage Powder instead. Get rid of the Sword of Ruin, so Amoonguss is able to hang on. Brilliant play by Emilio.
Really nice. Oh, the Spore puts the Dragapult to sleep. Michael is in so much trouble.
Looks like Michael is just going to try to stall out a turn and hope that the Dragapult can wake up. Because if it does get the wake up here, you Phantom Force and dodge the Surging Strikes.
Dragapult was able to wake up in just one turn and Phantom Force out of trouble, but it was too little, too late. Landorus's Terra Blast threatened KOs on both Michael's remaining Pokemon, and with Amoonguss supporting Emilio's Landorus, there was nothing Michael could do to stop the onslaught in time. Take the fake out, Phantom Force. Rillaboom is just going to go down to the Terra Blast.
Yep, and Phantom Force, Dragapult can't do enough.
And Forbes takes game 1. Michael tried to find another line in game 2, opting to not terrestrialize the Dragapult for the first time in his games on stream. But when his Chien-Pao's Icicle Crash failed to KO Emilio's Amoonguss, the game was already all but over.
And because you didn't tear the Dragapult, this could be a bit weird. Amoonguss gets the guarantee redirects here with Rage Powder, and Gleam is going to always knock out the Dragapult here, unless Chien-Pao gets a flinch.
Let's see it. Oh, doesn't get the flinch, and Flutterman takes a double KO. Emilio advanced to top 4 with a 2-0 win, eliminating Michael at 5th. The loser's semifinal matchup pitted Brady against Emilio. In game 1, Grimmsnarl was only able to set up a light screen, which wasn't enough to save it from the combination of Heat Wave and Moonblast. Later on, it wouldn't prove to be enough to save the Goldengo from a Heatran Heat Wave. With Goldengo down, Brady simply didn't have enough damage to threaten Emilio, and Emilio would take game 1 in 7 turns. Brady was able to gain the upper hand early in game 2 though. Grimmsnarl put up a light screen and survived a Surging Strikes on turn 2, leaving Amoonguss free to put Emilio's Urshifu to sleep.
Yeah, the thing is, against screens like a passive one here, if you're playing too defensive and the opponent has set up, it can get real awkward. So plus 3 Psychic might be able to KO Amoonguss this time around, but let's see.
Goldengo comes in, went for Hyper Voice. It's going to KO Grimmsnarl, but I mean, light screen's up.
I guess the big question is, does Urshifu wake up? Because that could actually be concerning if it does wake up immediately. The Goldengo would take a lot here, although you could still Rage Powder with Amoonguss the following turn, so it wouldn't be the worst position, but you gotta watch out. This is a free nasty plot for the Goldengo potentially, but we see a Terra. Surging Strike 60% here. Nasty Plot comes out. Psychic into Amoonguss, but because of Terra, it is able to survive.
And Pull and Puff heals up. Oh, this Goldengo is so scary now. M-Forbes for the first time in this matchup, a little bit on the back foot. I mean, the Frigiraffe is still spooky, but like it's got nothing to hit Goldengo with. And it didn't matter at all. Terra Water on the Farigiraffe rendered the Nasty Plot on Brady's Goldengo useless. It was able to survive a Make It Rain and finish off the Amoonguss, opening the door for Urshifu to one-shot the Landorus on the next turn. Brady's Goldengo used up all of its boosts, taking out the Farigiraffe, and Emilio's Fluttermane and Urshifu cleaned up with ease. Brady bought out of the tournament at 4th place. Emilio's losers run continued with a matchup against Luca. Luca had one of the most creative Urshifu answers of the tournament, Rocky Helmet Pelipper. Normally, Surging Strike's multi-hit status is great for Urshifu, allowing it to break through focus sashes for KOs, but each hit activates Rocky Helmet, and this Pelipper ends up dealing more damage back to an Urshifu than it takes from the attack. Yes, Luca's Pelipper went down, but it had done its job. The Heatran came out, but with the protection of the rain, Luca had no fear of clicking Terra Steel Nasty Plot. Twice. With Pull and Puff support, Goldengo was still at full health. Heatran tried its best, but with the rain support, even super effective heat waves were useless, and Luca rode the protection of the rain to an easy Game 1 victory. It's so interesting how like it's almost the rain is almost only for defense, and then for surging strikes, like there's no swift terms or anything. It's just like it covers like Goldengo's and Amoongu's fire weakness. Emilio switched gears for Game 2, and he opened up by calling out Luca's Pelipper switch in by bringing his Urshifu in for Heatran. Emilio wasn't able to take a KO thanks to Luca's switch to Amoongus, but a boosted Hyper Voice still put Emilio in a great position, threatening an Aqua Jet KO onto Amoongus. With Protect useless in the face of Unseen Fist, the momentum was too much to overcome. Emilio got Trick Room up for his boosted Farigiraf and ran away with Game 2 from there. After using his Pelipper as a switch-in threat the first 2 games, he decided to lead it in Game 3, putting Emilio on the back foot as his Heatran was now useless in staring down a certain KO from Urshifu. Luca had all the momentum and he put his foot on the gas on turn 2.
You gotta think hard here if you're Emilio too, because Luca Lucario's in the driving seat offensively. Hasn't lost anything. Terra Water
for both Amoongus and Urshifu. Terra Water just to defend against the Psychic, I'm assuming? Hurricane.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because Psychic won't KO and you get the Spore off into Urshifu.
Oh,
and now
that was a really good Terra Water by Luca, actually. Holy shit. Emilio was never able to regain momentum, as Luca's Urshifu had the speed advantage with its Joy Scarf. Emilio's Urshifu watched helplessly as all its friends went down, and Luca advanced to the Grand Finals. There's one player who we haven't seen at all so far, and he's the one awaiting Luca in Grand Finals. His run has been far from easy. Twice he was pushed to a decisive Game 3 in his first round against Francesco and his second round against Emilio. This player, who wanted to remain anonymous for obvious reasons, was known only as Killua. He had ran into Luca in the Grand Finals of the winner's bracket. Here, Killua looked unstoppable. Luca couldn't keep Killua's Goldengo from setting up with Nasty Plot and sweeping behind protection from Amoongus. Despite how deep in bracket we were, it was one of the swiftest 2-0s of the tournament. Luca was able to answer back in Grand Finals though. Game 1 swung his way thanks to a big read off of Surging Strikes from Killua, with the Pelipper coming in and tanking a big chunk of Urshifu's life bar. Killua got his Goldengo set up with the Nasty Plot that had been winning him games all day, but this time Luca was able to sweep the friends around Goldengo quickly enough. Qianpao one-shot it with a crunch to finish it, and Luca had his first win in 3 games against Killua. Luca was coming up from the loser's bracket, meaning to win the tournament and the $1,500 first place prize, he'd have to win 2 straight sets against Killua. It looked like he'd finished the first one in a sweep early on, as he made a huge call in Game 2 on an Amoonguss switch in with Qianpao Icicle Crash, but it wasn't enough to stop Killua. Their decision to trade Urshifu for Qianpao paid off in a big way. Without the massive damage from Crunch, Luca had no way to take out Goldengo fast enough before it could spiral out of control. Killua took Game 2 with ease. A lucky dodge from Tornase's Bleak Wind Storm gave Luca a break in Game 3. With Qianpao's Focus Sash still intact after the whiff, Killua felt compelled to Surging Strikes into Qianpao, and Luca was able to call it out with a Pelipper switch. It wasn't enough to KO the Urshifu, but it left Pelipper free to Tailwind as Killua couldn't attack it with Urshifu without knocking himself out. Now, see the power of Urshifu in Rain. Yeah.
So...
Okay, Lando switch for the Intimidate, makes sense. Terra Water Goldengo. Oh, fuck.
That still does over 60%. It's a Hurricane.
Hurricane, yep. Oh. There was nothing left to stop the Urshifu with the rain and tailwind behind it, and we had ourselves a bracket reset. It all came down to this. After an easy set in winners finals, Killua had lost the momentum. Game 1 of the reset saw the same leads as Game 3 of the last set. Had Killua found a winning line here, or was he running out of ideas?
Or an aggressive wild charge read on the Urshifu. Terra Water immediately.
Interesting. Oh,
the crash. Ooh, the crit is pretty significant. Sash by Pao gets broken this time. He slides and takes out the Pao.
The Terra Water is so smart from, but he wild charged into it to cover it. The decision to Terra Grass the Iron Hands didn't pay off for Luca, and was already in a losing position after just 2 turns. It was once again tournament point for Killua. The Rocky Helmet had done so much work for Luca defending against Urshifu, but this time he died by one of the strategies he had used to get this far. Killua led Amoonguss and Goldengo against Luca's Pelipper and Urshifu, and used Rage Powder to redirect his surging strikes into the Mushroom, his own Rocky Helmet user. The Amoonguss fell to Luca's Pelipper's Hurricane, but the Goldengo was able to set up. Now, Luca had to find a way to stop the Goldengo from running wild. The Amoonguss may have been gone, but Killua was ready with the perfect switch in.
Would be a gamble, but Tornadus is in, so probably just that Tailwind, then the Shadow Ball probably coming out.
I could maybe see a switch from the Urshifu.
Yeah, could you switch for a turn here? Just to set up your own Tailwind, maybe?
Yeah, sure. Urshifu could definitely be switched out. You also have a safe play for Killua, potentially. You could go for a Terra with your Golden Ghost, Shadow Ball to Pelipper, and super deny Tailwind because you knock out the Pelipper, and then you can Tailwind the following turn. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing here.
Okay, yeah, we see Terra, Water, Goldengo, Surging Strikes.
No Tailwind goes... Oh, wait, actually, it does eat.
And the Surging Strikes doesn't even take out the Tornadus. But he went for Bleak Wind Storm as well. Pelipper goes down.
Yeah, because he can just Tailwind this turn now.
Yeah. Oh, that's so smart from Killua. Fuck.
Unless your Iron Hands come in with Fake Out pressure against the No Protect.
Okay. The rain had become Killua's best friend, as it gave his Urshifu a guaranteed kill onto both Luca's Iron Hands and Chien Pao. It was all over, and Killua was champion, winning $1,500 of the $2,000 prize pool. That's more or less a flight to Japan, right? Congrats.